Hello everybody, JT Bice here from Kainos Block Producers. I'm going to be producing a video today on how to launch the Telos Blockchain Network from scratch. We have a need right now to educate more BPs on launching the chain and being able to launch a fresh chain into StageNet. Right now we're launching into StageNet to test release candidate for Oak 1.6. And as most of you know, our testing procedure before going to mainnet is launch a StageNet, testing there, upgrade testnet, and then upgrade mainnet. So let's get started. A couple prerequisites. One, that you have already downloaded, built, and or installed Oak version 1.6 release candidate from the Telos Foundation GitHub, and also the CDT, the contract development toolkit provided by Block One. That can be found on their GitHub page here. Actually, you can just Google ESIO CDT, and it should be the first option for you. Directions for installation, building from scratch, building from source is all here. I've actually installed the binary. Most of you will be running Ubuntu, so you will want to install the Debian package, which is these two lines. So after you have those things installed, we can talk about data structure or file hierarchy. As you can see, I've got Telos directory at my root, and then inside there I've got the actual versions of Telos that I'm running, and then inside this data directory I've got my config ini, genesis.json. Then these directories, these blocks, log, and state, are all on their own partitions. We found that the way that NodeOS does some file locking is kind of weird, and it's you get the best performance out of your machine by having these three directories on their own partitions, even if it's on the same disk. So I've got a separate partition for blocks, log, and state. Got those created here and mounted appropriately. Then we have our config.ini and our genesis.json. So first things first, I'm actually going to wipe out this wallet. Do that from scratch also. So we're going to do Telos wallet create, and we want to get that password at the console. We'll go and copy and paste this guy. This is a temporary box, so I'm going to show all the keys. Not going to hurt my feelings if you want to use them. And then we also need to create a Genesis key. I'll also put that guy to console and copy it over here to Notepad. Alright. Okay, we're going to edit our Genesis file first. Take our Genesis public key, copy it, paste it into the genesis.json. And we're going to do the same thing for our config. So we can go over a couple of things in the configuration file first. I do have the chain plugins, the chain and history APIs both enabled in addition to the producer plugin. Typically, as you know, running these plugins on a producer node is not recommended. Since this is StageNet, I am going to go ahead and run everything just a machine that's going to do it all. And you can have producer plugin commented or not. It runs every time from what we have found. Running Wobbit for the runtime. Got filter, just going to give me everything in history. My HTTP aliases, listening on 8888. Peer-to-peer server IP address, going to be the same as up here, listening on 9876. I've got my peer addresses completely commented out, since this is the Genesis node. It actually doesn't have anything to connect to. Only things are going to connect to it. Producer name, go ahead and comment that also, since we're going to crank this up with EOSIO. We're going to do that from the node OS command. The key, however, we will go in and wipe out and put in our Genesis key that's over here in Notepad. Same for the private. Next thing we're going to do is check out the contracts. So in order to launch the chain from scratch, we need to have all the contracts: token contract, system contract, TFET contract, trail, all those good stuff. And all of that can also be found on the Telos Foundation GitHub. EOSIO contracts. And right now I believe we're working with Oak version 1.0.1. Just going to copy this path. Do the git clone. I'm going to clone that to this Telos contracts directory. I'll do a git checkout. For the version we want. I'll also go in and do although you probably don't need to do the submodule update, I'm going to do it anyway. Alright, so here is where you would need the CDT already installed before you can run this build script. One thing I do want to show you, however, is in the CMake, where we actually list all the contracts that we're building here. We do have commented out down here by default the unit tests. The unit tests have had some problems in the past. They may be fixed now. They take a little while to run. We haven't really needed them, so we comment that portion of the script out. So with CDT installed already, we should be able to run the build script and build all of the contracts for launch. You will see that there are a series of errors talking about missing Ricardians. We are missing Ricardians for several things. We do have them for the most important of actions. We will be adding more Ricardians later. These errors will decrease over time. Alright, so 100%. We've built our contracts repository. Next thing we're going to do is check out the launch scripts. And for that, we're going to head over to the CalEOS launch scripts Git repository. Thanks to Jesse Schulman for doing most of the heavy lifting here. And the file we're going to be working with most is this launcher.js. clone on the launch scripts. Alright, so within the launch scripts repository, we are needing to add a file, which is referenced here. This ops.js. The options that you'll need to fill out for yourself are here. I've got a backup copy from a previous launch in my home directory. I'm just going to copy it here. And we're going to do similar things. We're going to go in and give the launch script our public and private keys. Tell it our local API is going to run on port 8888, as we already looked at in the config file. We're telling it that the contracts directory, which is what we just built, is Telos contracts. It could vary for you. Just put the appropriate information here. We need to tell it where Telos is, so we're looking under 1.6. Our wallet is the default wallet, and this password will also need to be updated. With our new wallet password. You don't necessarily have to put the wallet password in. You can unlock the wallet and then run the launch script. Depending on the speed of your machine, however, it could get to a portion of the launch that doesn't require the wallet for a while. Your wallet will lock and then will be unable to unlock it. Then the launch will fail. So I recommend adding it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and import our private key now. Imported their Genesis key to our wallet. Alright, so we've got Oak 1.6 downloaded and built. We have the Telos contracts downloaded and built. We've got the launch scripts downloaded. There are some prerequisites for the launch scripts. You need to make sure that your Node.js version is a later version than what is installed by default in Ubuntu 18. I think my Node version is 10.15 and Node.js is the same. So you can just do a quick Google search and find how to update Node on Ubuntu, and it's fairly straightforward. There are some prereqs required to run these scripts, so just run npm I. Then we also need to do install request. It's one that's not hit by default for some reason. And we can go back and check. Sure, 183 is your vulnerability. Should be good there. Alright, so we've got the prereqs for launch scripts done. And we should be about ready to launch this. So the command that I like to run is this guy. So we are running NodeOS. We're telling it that we want to start the chain of stale blocks with using the user EOSIO, utilizing our genesis.json that we've already edited. We're going to delete all blocks in case there's anything in our data directory. Tell it where our data directory is and where our config directory is, and then that we're going to output NodeOS to log. And if we've done everything right, should start producing blocks. Oh, looky there. Whole lot of stale blocks. So for this tutorial, we are going to go in and modify the launcher file. Here's all of the, you can run through this. Like I said, Jesse did most of the heavy lifting here. I helped a little bit here and there. It ended up being over 2,000 lines. In this case, we want to go down to where we trigger everything to run. So creating BP accounts, creating TF accounts, free accounts, injecting rewards. Oh, all the script is actually downloading all of the files directly from GitHub and storing them in memory. So they won't end up on your drive, and it makes things very fast that way. For the purposes of this video, however, we are going to comment out Genesis injection because that takes longer than anything else. And that is here. Oop. You can go in and, comment out stuff like injecting reward pool. You can comment setting up TFET. That takes a little bit of time. Voting tokens, depending on what you're testing. In this case, we're just going to comment out Genesis. And if we've done everything right, we actually kick the launch script off running node test.js. So there you see it created system contracts, pushed the, system accounts, pushed the system contracts. Now we're creating the BP accounts that we pre-populated before launch. This was to reserve the BP account names for those that were in the TLG. And I think even some that weren't. Yeah, see, we've got all of the EOS BP account names that we also reserved for those guys. Here's the Telos Foundation accounts. Now we're creating the TFRP. These were the Founders Rewards accounts. Now community rewards. Again, depending on what you're doing, you may want to comment these steps out of the launch script to save time. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. We'll come back when it's a little further along. Alright, welcome back. We're nearing the end of the script now. This is doing the RAM buys for RAM admin and RAM launch.tf. These were the control accounts that we created to help control the RAM price. And the last thing that it's doing is creating the Telos Foundation voting token accounts. There we go, launch complete. Now if we do Telos, get account, jt.tf, there I am. And also go in and do a cat log file. And we can see that we had several transactions that were running while the script was deploying. And at this point, the box should be ready to connect to from another node of yours. You could crank up another node on this server and connect to it, have your own little cluster, or given that it's a public IP address, have somebody else have other BPs go ahead and connect and sync up. One thing that I did forget, pretty important. If we go into the contracts and take a look at the system contract, and we're going to look at EOSIO system.hpp. This line right here, this value, block number for network activation. By default in the repository is set to 1,000. You can set it to whatever you want. Obviously for mainnet we set it to 1,000,000 blocks. I would suggest increasing it more than 1,000, having activation occur after a few BPs join up and regprod. If you don't, activation will occur before launch is complete, and the very first BP that regprods will be the only BP on the chain, and if that BP doesn't produce, the chain will be jacked up until they produce. So just an aside there. And that's it. That concludes the video for launching the Telos blockchain from scratch. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Telegram. I'm Hartparr, HARTPARR. You can also reach out to us on Twitter, Kainos Block Producers. Our BP name is Kainos Block Pro. Vote for us. Keep us in the BP serving the chain. Have a good day.